The massive alien fleet stretched across Earth's orbital space like a dark cancer, their ships blotting out the stars. Admiral Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the U.S. Defiance, watching the tactical display with growing despair. 3 weeks of continuous fighting had reduced humanity's once proud fleet to scattered remnants. The Korthak Dominion had come without warning, their demands simple: surrender or face extinction. "Admiral, we're detecting massive energy signatures from the enemy flagship," reported Lieutenant Torres, his voice strained from exhaustion. "They're charging their planetary bombardment arrays." Chen's hands gripped the railing until her knuckles turned white. Below them, Earth hung like a blue jewel, unaware that in mere hours, its surface would be turned to molten glass. The evacuation ships had managed to save perhaps 10% of the population. The rest would die screaming under the alien weapons. "All remaining ships, this is Admiral Chun," she broadcast on the fleet channel. "Form up for final attack pattern Omega. We're going to ram that flagship and try to take out their command structure." It was a desperate plan, born of desperation. The remaining human ships numbered barely 24 against the Korthak fleet of 300. They had no chance of victory, but they could at least make the aliens pay dearly for their conquest. The Defiance shuddered as enemy fire began to rain down upon them. The ship's shields flickered and died under the assault. Around them, other human vessels exploded in brilliant flashes of light, their crews dying in the cold vacuum of space. "Admiral, new contact!" Torres suddenly shouted, his eyes wide with disbelief. Something just appeared on sensors, bearing 270 Mark 8. It's massive. Chen spun to look at the tactical display. There, where empty space had been moments before, hung a ship unlike anything she had ever seen. It was easily 3 times the size of the largest Korthak vessel, its hull a pristine white that seemed to gleam with its own inner light. Strange geometric patterns covered its surface, pulsing with energy that made the sensors struggle to maintain lock. "Where did it come from?" Chen demanded. "Was it cloaked?" "Unknown, Admiral. It just appeared. No energy signatures, no gravitational displacement. 1 second there was nothing, the next second it was there." The mysterious vessel hung motionless in space for several long moments, as if studying the battlefield. The Korthak fleet had also noticed the newcomer and had begun to redirect some of their ships toward it, their weapons charging ominously. Then the unknown ship spoke. The communication came through on all frequencies simultaneously, bypassing every encryption and security protocol the humans had ever developed. The voice that emerged was clear and unmistakably human, speaking perfect English with what sounded like an old Earth accent. "This is Captain Marcus Webb of the Terran Deep Space Reconnaissance Vessel Prometheus. We've been monitoring your situation from afar and have decided to intervene. All human vessels, please maintain current positions. We'll handle this." The bridge of the Defiance fell silent. Chun felt her world shift on its axis. Terran? There were no Terran ships in deep space. Humanity had barely managed to establish colonies in the outer solar system before the Korthak invasion began. "Unknown vessel Prometheus. This is Admiral Chun of the United Earth Fleet. Identify your origin and authorization codes immediately." The response came with what sounded suspiciously like amusement. "Admiral, I'm afraid our authorization codes are somewhat out of date. We've been away for quite some time. But I can tell you this. We're here to help, and we're very upset about what these Korthak bastards have done to our homeworld." Before Chun could respond, the Prometheus began to move. Despite its massive size, it accelerated with impossible grace, sliding through space like a knife through water. The Korthak ships opened fire, their plasma cannons and particle beams converging on the mysterious vessel. The weapons struck the Prometheus and simply vanished. Not absorbed, not deflected, they disappeared as if they had never existed at all. The alien ship seemed completely unaffected by the assault. "What kind of shielding technology is that?" whispered Torres. Chen had no answer. She watched in stunned silence as the Prometheus glided toward the Korthak fleet like an avenging angel. As it moved, ports along its hull began to open, revealing weapons that defied easy description. They looked like crystalline structures that pulsed with the same white light as the ship's hull. The Prometheus opened fire. What happened next would be burned into the memory of every human who witnessed it. Beams of pure white energy lanced out from the mysterious ship, each one striking a Korthak vessel with surgical precision. But these weren't ordinary weapons. Where the energy touched the alien ships, they didn't explode or burn. They simply ceased to exist. Molecules were torn apart at the quantum level, matter converted directly to energy in a display that made nuclear fusion look like a candle flame. In the space of 30 seconds, the Prometheus destroyed 50 Korthak ships without breaking formation. The remaining alien fleet began to retreat, their commanders apparently recognizing that they faced something far beyond their ability to combat. But the Prometheus wasn't finished. It accelerated again, moving faster than should have been possible for something so large, pursuing the fleeing enemy vessels. All human ships, this is Captain Webb. Please maintain safe distance. We're going to clean house. What followed could only be described as a methodical execution. The Prometheus moved through the Korthak fleet like a shark among minnows, its impossible weapons reducing the most advanced alien warships to their component atoms. The enemy tried everything: ramming attacks, suicide runs, concentrated fire from their remaining heavy ships. Nothing worked. The mysterious vessel was untouchable, unstoppable. Within an hour, the battle was over. 300 Korthak warships had been reduced to scattered debris and expanding clouds of plasma. Not a single alien vessel had escaped Earth's gravity well. The Prometheus hung in space above Earth, its hull gleaming in the sunlight. For long moments, no one spoke. The human fleet, what remained of it, floated in stunned silence. Finally, Admiral Chun found her voice. "Prometheus, this is Admiral Chun. We need to talk." "Indeed we do, Admiral," came the reply. "Prepare to receive our shuttle. We have much to discuss, and I'm afraid time is rather short. The Korthak Dominion has many fleets, and they'll be very interested to learn what happened here today." As Chun watched, a small craft detached from the Prometheus and began moving toward the Defiance. It was sleek and elegant, its design clearly related to the massive ship, but somehow distinctly different. Older, perhaps, or built for a different purpose. The Admiral looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. They were all thinking the same thing she was. Who were these people? Where had they come from? And, most importantly, what did they want with Earth? The shuttle docked with the Defiance with barely a whisper of contact. Chun made her way to the airlock, her mind racing with questions and possibilities. Behind her, Torres was already working to establish communication protocols with the Prometheus, his instruments struggling to penetrate whatever advanced technology the ship employed. The airlock opened with a soft hiss of equalizing pressure. A figure stepped through, and Chun felt her breath catch in her throat. The man who emerged was tall and lean, dressed in a uniform that looked distinctly human, but unlike anything in current service. His hair was gray at the temples, his face weathered by what looked like years of hard living. But his eyes were bright and intelligent, and when he smiled, it was with genuine warmth. "Admiral Chun," he said, extending his hand. "Captain Marcus Webb, as promised. It's good to meet you." Chun shook his hand, noting the firm grip and the calluses of someone who had seen real action. "Captain Webb, I have to ask, who are you? Where did you come from?" Webb's smile faded slightly. "That's a long story, Admiral. And like I said, time is short. But the short version is this: we're human, just like you. We left Earth a very long time ago on a mission that, well, let's say it took longer than expected. We've been trying to get home for decades." "How long?" Chen asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to hear the answer. "According to your calendar, about 200 years. The words hung in the air like a physical weight. Chun stared at him, trying to process what he had just said. 200 years. It was impossible. Humans didn't have interstellar travel 200 years ago. They barely had rockets. But the evidence was right there in front of her. The Prometheus hung in space like a monument to impossible technology, its weapons having just saved Earth from certain destruction. "I know it's hard to believe," Webb said gently. "But we have a lot to discuss and not much time to do it. The Korthak won't ignore what happened here. They'll send reinforcements, probably within days. If we're going to save Earth, we need to work together." She nodded slowly. Whatever the truth about Captain Webb and his ship, they had just saved humanity from extinction. That earned them the right to be heard. "Very well, Captain. Let's talk." The briefing room aboard the UES Defiance had never hosted such an extraordinary meeting. Admiral Chun sat across from Captain Webb, while her senior staff filled the remaining chairs. The weight of recent events pressed down on everyone present like a physical force. Webb had removed his jacket, revealing a uniform beneath that bore unfamiliar insignia. The fabric itself seemed different somehow, more advanced than anything Chun had seen, yet with a distinctly retro design that spoke of an earlier era. "Before we begin," Chun said carefully, "I need to verify your identity. You claim to be human, from Earth, but 2 centuries old. You'll understand why that's difficult to accept." Webb nodded and pulled out a small device from his pocket. It projected a holographic display that made several officers gasp. The technology was clearly decades ahead of anything in current use. "Service record, Captain Marcus Webb, United Earth Deep Space Command," he said as information scrolled across the display. "Born in New Geneva, Switzerland, 2089. Graduated from the Luna Academy, class of 2111. Commissioned as lieutenant aboard the exploration vessel Pioneer." Chun leaned forward, studying the data. The records looked authentic, complete with biometric scans and service photos showing a much younger Webb. But something nagged at her. "United Earth Deep Space Command was disbanded in 2115, she said. "Budget cuts after the Mars colony failures. There were no deep space missions." "Officially, yes," Webb replied, his expression growing somber. "But there was one last mission. Project Odyssey. Completely classified, known only to a handful of people in the highest levels of government. The Prometheus was humanity's first true interstellar vessel, sent to investigate signals we'd been receiving from a Centauri system." He manipulated the holographic display, showing technical specifications that made Lieutenant Torres whistle softly. The Prometheus, according to these records, had been equipped with an experimental faster-than-light drive based on theories that were still considered impossible by current Earth science. "The mission was supposed to last 5 years, Webb continued. "We would travel to Centauri, investigate the signals, and return with whatever we found. What we actually found was far more than anyone expected." The hologram shifted to show star charts and navigation data. Chun could see the path of the Prometheus stretching across light years of space, touching dozens of star systems. "The signals weren't random," Webb explained. "They were breadcrumbs left by an ancient race called the Forerunners. Each signal led to the next, and each location contained technology beyond our wildest dreams. We followed the trail for decades, learning, growing, becoming something more than we were when we left Earth." "But why didn't you come back?" asked Commander Rodriguez, Chin's tactical officer. "Why stay away for 200 years? Webb's face darkened. "Because we discovered what happened to the Forerunners, and we learned that the same thing was coming for Earth." He changed the holographic display again, showing images that made several officers recoil in shock. Massive alien structures, clearly artificial, but somehow organic in appearance. Dead worlds, their surfaces scoured clean of all life. And ships, vast, predatory vessels that seemed to hunger for destruction. "The Korthak Dominion," Webb said quietly. "They're not explorers or conquerors in any sense we understand. They're harvesters. They consume civilizations, not for resources or territory, but for the simple act of consumption itself. They've been moving through this galaxy for millions of years, leaving nothing but dead systems in their wake." Chun felt a chill run down her spine. "You're saying they've done this before?" "Thousands of times. Med millions. The Forerunners were one of their victims eons ago. But before they died, they left behind a network of technologies and defenses, hoping that someday another species would find them and learn to fight back." Webb stood and began pacing, his hands clasped behind his back. "We spent decades learning from Forerunner ruins, reverse engineering their technology, preparing for the day we knew would come. When we detected the Korthak advance fleet approaching Earth, we began the journey home." "But you almost didn't make it in time," Chin observed. "No, we almost didn't," Webb admitted. "Our faster-than-light drive is based on Forerunner technology, but it's still experimental. We had several catastrophic failures over the years that stranded us in deep space. By the time we reached Earth, the invasion had already begun." Lieutenant Torres looked up from his console, where he had been analyzing the data Webb had shared. Sir, these weapon specifications, the power requirements alone, should be impossible. Our entire fleet couldn't generate a fraction of this energy. Webb smiled grimly. That's because you're still thinking in terms of conventional physics. The Forerunners learned to manipulate matter and energy at the quantum level. Their weapons don't just destroy targets, they unmake them, breaking the very bonds that hold atoms together. And you've learned to use this technology? Chen asked. Some of it. We're still students compared to what the Forerunners achieved. But we've learned enough to fight back against the Korthak. The question is whether it will be enough. Commander Rodriguez leaned forward. What do you mean? You destroyed their entire fleet in less than an hour. That was a single battle group, Webb replied. The Korthak Dominion spans half the galaxy. When they receive word of what happened here, they'll send everything they have. Hundreds of fleets, thousands of ships. The force that attacked Earth was just a scouting expedition. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Chun felt her stomach drop. They had celebrated too early, thinking the battle was won. In reality, it had barely begun. How long do we have? She asked. Webb consulted his device. Based on Korthak communication protocols and fleet deployment patterns, I estimate 3 to 4 weeks before the main force arrives. Maybe less if they prioritize this system. What can we do with 3 weeks? Demanded Rodriguez. Our fleet is gone. Earth's defenses are in ruins. We can't evacuate 8 billion people. No, Webb agreed. But we can prepare them to fight. He manipulated the hologram again, showing new images. Massive construction platforms, manufacturing facilities that seemed to bend space around themselves, and ship designs that dwarfed anything in Earth's current arsenal. The Forerunners left more than just weapons, he explained. They left instructions, blueprints for technologies that could transform human civilization overnight. The Prometheus carries manufacturing systems that can build almost anything, given the right materials. You're talking about rebuilding Earth's entire military infrastructure in 3 weeks, Chun said incredulously. That's impossible. With conventional technology, yes. But Forerunner manufacturing systems work on principles of matter compilation. They can literally assemble objects from their component atoms. We could build a new fleet, upgrade existing ships, construct orbital defense platforms. All of it. Torres was studying the technical specifications with growing excitement. Admiral, if even half of this is possible, we could field weapons that make our current arsenal look like stone axes. There's a catch, Webb said soberly. The technology requires massive amounts of rare materials. Elements that are scarce on Earth but abundant in the asteroid belt and outer planets. We need to mount major mining operations while simultaneously building the new fleet. That would require coordinating with every space-capable nation on Earth, Chun mused. The political complications alone. Which is why we need to move fast, Webb interrupted. Before the politicians can interfere, I propose we start with a demonstration. Something to show Earth's leaders what's at stake and what's possible. He gestured to his device, and the hologram displayed a schematic of what looked like a space station, but unlike any Chun had ever seen. It was enormous, clearly designed for both manufacturing and defense, with weapon systems that dwarfed anything in current military doctrine. This is a Forerunner-designed command station, Webb explained. It can serve as a manufacturing hub, command center, and fortress all in one. With the Prometheus's construction systems, we could build it in approximately 1 week. Where'd you put it? Asked Commander Rodriguez. L5 Lagrange Point, Webb replied immediately. Stable orbit, defensible position, close enough to Earth for rapid response, but far enough out to avoid collateral damage. Chin studied the schematic, her mind racing through the implications. It was audacious beyond belief, but also their only hope. What do you need from us? Political cover, primarily, and crews for the new ships. The Prometheus only carries a complement of 50 people. We'll need thousands of trained personnel to operate a full fleet. 50 people? Torres looked shocked. That ship must be 3 kilometers long. Forerunner automation, Webb explained. Most of a ship runs itself. In theory, one person could operate it in an emergency, though it's not recommended. Chun stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the debris field that had once been the Korthak fleet. In the distance, the Prometheus hung in space like a promise of impossible things to come. Captain Webb, she said without turning around, you've given us hope when we had none. But I have to ask, why should we trust you? You appear from nowhere with technology that seems like magic, claiming to be humans from Earth's past. For all we know, you could be aliens yourselves, using human appearance to manipulate us. The room tensed. It was a fair question, but also a dangerous one. If Webb was hostile, they were all sitting at his mercy. Webb was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out something small, placing it on the table. It was a photograph, old and worn, showing a much younger version of himself with a woman and two small children. My wife Sarah and my daughters Emma and Lisa, he said softly. I left them on Earth when the Prometheus launched. They're buried in Geneva Municipal Cemetery. Sarah died in 2156, according to the records we accessed. The girls lived full lives, had children of their own. My great-great-grandchildren are probably walking around down there right now, and I'll never know them. His voice cracked slightly. We gave up everything for this mission, Admiral. Our families, our lives, our place in history. We did it because we knew that someday humanity would face extinction, and we were the only ones who could prepare them for it. We spent 2 centuries learning how to fight monsters so that Earth's children could have a future. Chen turned back to face him. In his eyes, she saw pain that could only come from genuine loss, and determination that could only be born from love. What do you need us to do? She asked. Webb straightened, becoming a military officer once again. First, we need to establish communications with Earth Command. They need to know what's coming and what we're offering. Second, we need immediate authorization to begin mining operations in the asteroid belt. Third, we need every available ship and crew to be placed under unified command. That's a tall order, Chen warned. Earth's governments don't work together easily. Then, we'll have to convince them, Webb replied, because the alternative is the complete extinction of human civilization. He gestured to the hologram one more time, showing images of the dead worlds the Korthak had left behind. Barren rock, scoured clean of all life, orbiting cold stars and empty systems. This is what happens to species that can't defend themselves, he said grimly. The Korthak don't take prisoners. They don't negotiate. They consume everything and move on. Earth has 3 weeks to become something they've never encountered before, a prey species that can fight back. She nodded slowly. It was the most important decision she would ever make, but really there was no choice at all. Lieutenant Torres, open a channel to Earth Command. Priority Alpha. Tell them Admiral Chun needs to speak with the Security Council immediately. Yes, ma'am. Captain Webb, Chun said, extending her hand again. Welcome home. Let's save the world. The United Nations Security Council had seen many emergency sessions in its long history, but none quite like this one. In a grand chamber in New York, representatives from every major nation sat in stunned silence as Admiral Chen's holographic image finished her briefing. Captain Webb stood beside her projection, having transported down from the Prometheus for this crucial meeting. Secretary General Maria Santos was the first to break the silence. Captain Webb, you're asking us to believe that you're from a secret mission launched 2 centuries ago, using technology that our best scientists say is impossible. I understand your skepticism, Webb replied calmly. But I'm not asking you to believe anything. I'm offering proof. He activated his holographic display, showing detailed scans of the debris field where the Korthak fleet had been destroyed. These are the remains of 300 alien warships, each one individually more powerful than Earth's entire combined fleet. They were destroyed in less than 1 hour by weapons based on technology I'm offering to share with you. The Russian representative, Viktor Petrov, leaned forward. And what do you want in return for this miraculous technology? Nothing, Webb said simply. Earth is my home. These are my people. I want to save them. That's rather convenient, said the Chinese delegate, Dr. Li Wei. A mysterious savior appears just when we need one most, asking for nothing, but offering everything. Webb's expression hardened slightly. Dr. Li, I've spent 200 years preparing for this moment. I've watched my wife die of old age through quantum communications arrays. I've missed the entire lives of my children and grandchildren. I've seen civilizations rise and fall while I gather the knowledge needed to protect Earth. If you think any of this is convenient, you're welcome to face the next Korthak fleet without our help. The Brazilian representative, Colonel Santos, spoke up. Even if we accept your story, what you're proposing is impossible. You want to rebuild our entire military infrastructure in 3 weeks. Our combined manufacturing capabilities couldn't produce a single one of these new ships in a year. Which is why we won't be using your manufacturing capabilities, Webb replied. He gestured to his display, showing construction footage from the Prometheus. Massive objects took shape from what appeared to be thin air, assembled by machines that moved with impossible precision. Forerunner matter compilation technology, he explained. It works at the atomic level, assembling objects directly from raw materials. The Prometheus carries enough fabrication systems to construct a fleet of 50 capital ships and supporting infrastructure within 2 weeks. Assuming you can get the raw materials, pointed out the Japanese delegate. The asteroid belt contains more than enough rare metals, Webb confirmed. We'll need mining ships and processing facilities, but those can be built using the same technology. Secretary General Santos raised her hand for quiet. Captain Webb, even if everything you're saying is true, you're asking us to hand over complete authority for Earth's defense to someone we met 3 hours ago. No, Gwiv Kedektiv. I'm asking you to let me help save your world. Admiral Chun will retain command of all Earth forces. I'll serve as technical advisor and provide the advanced technology. But the command structure remains yours. The room erupted in discussion as delegates began arguing among themselves. Webb waited patiently, having expected this reaction. Behind him, Admiral Chin's hologram flickered slightly as the quantum communication link adjusted to maintain the connection. May I suggest a compromise? Chin's voice cut through the debate. A limited trial. Let Captain Webb demonstrate his capabilities on a smaller scale first. Build 1 ship, 1 station. Show us that the technology works before we commit everything. Webb nodded approvingly. I can construct a prototype frigate in 48 hours. Something small enough to be manageable, but advanced enough to prove the concept. The French representative, Ambassador Dubois, looked intrigued. What would this prototype be capable of? Webb consulted his device. Single-ship weapons systems equivalent to your current Dreadnought class. Defensive capabilities that could withstand concentrated fire from an entire battle group. Speed and maneuverability that would make your fastest interceptors look stationary. In a frigate-sized vessel, Dr. Lee looked skeptical. Forerunner technology doesn't follow the same power-to-mass ratios as your current designs, Webb explained. Their power systems tap directly into quantum vacuum energy. Their weapons manipulate matter at the subatomic level. Size becomes largely irrelevant. Colonel Santos was studying technical readouts on his tablet. These power signatures, if this is accurate, a single one of these frigates would have more firepower than our entire South American fleet. That's correct, Webb confirmed. And it would only require a crew of 12 people to operate effectively. The room fell silent again as the implications sank in. Finally, Secretary General Santos spoke. Captain Webb, if you can demonstrate this technology successfully, what would full implementation require? Webb manipulated his display, showing a comprehensive timeline. Complete reconstruction of Earth's defensive capabilities would take approximately 18 days, with full cooperation. We'd need every available mining vessel reassigned to asteroid belt operations, every shipyard facility converted to support new construction, and every military academy on Earth working overtime to train crews for the new ships. And if the Korthak arrive before we're ready, asked Viktor Petrov. Then we fight with whatever we have, Webb replied grimly. The Prometheus alone can handle a moderate assault, but if they send multiple battle groups simultaneously, we'll need every advantage we can get. Ambassador Dubois was reviewing financial projections on his display. The economic impact of such a rapid transformation would be staggering. Entire industries would need to be retooled overnight. The economic impact of human extinction would be considerably worse, Webb pointed out dryly. Dr. Lee stood and walked to the central display, studying the technical specifications Webb had provided. These manufacturing systems you describe, they would revolutionize human civilization even beyond military applications. Medicine, construction, space exploration, everything would change. That's the point, Webb said. The Forerunners didn't just leave behind weapons. They left behind the tools to transform any civilization into something capable of defending itself against existential threats. What Earth does with that technology after the immediate crisis is up to you. Secretary General Santos called for a brief recess, and the delegates broke into smaller groups for intense discussion. Webb used the time to examine Earth's current defensive capabilities in more detail, cross-referencing them with Korthak tactical assessments he had compiled over the decades. The picture was not encouraging. Even with massive technological upgrades, Earth's forces would be severely outnumbered when the main Korthak fleet arrived. Victory would require more than just better weapons. It would require a fundamental change in how humans approach warfare. When the session reconvened, Santos looked around the chamber with evident determination. The Security Council has reached a decision. Captain Webb, you have authorization to proceed with your demonstration. You will construct one prototype vessel under the supervision of Admiral Chun and a joint inspection team. If the demonstration is successful, we will consider full implementation of your proposals. And the mining operations? Webb asked. Limited authorization for asteroid belt resource extraction. 10 ships initially, with expansion possible based on demonstrated need. Webb nodded. It wasn't everything he had hoped for, but it was enough to begin. I'll need a construction site, somewhere with minimal orbital traffic and good defensive positioning. L4 Lagrange Point has been cleared for your use, Santos confirmed. How long before you can begin? I can have construction platforms deployed within 6 hours, Webb replied. The prototype frigate should be complete within 48 hours as promised. Colonel Santos looked concerned. Captain, I hope you understand the position we're in. If this technology proves unreliable, or if you prove to be not what you claim to be, Earth will be left defenseless when the enemy arrives. I understand completely, Webb assured him, which is why I'm going to do everything in my power to prove otherwise. As the session concluded, Webb found himself surrounded by technical advisors and military representatives, all eager to learn more about the miraculous technology he had brought. He answered their questions patiently, sharing what knowledge he could while being careful not to overwhelm them with concepts their science wasn't ready to understand. Later, as he prepared to return to the Prometheus, Admiral Chun approached him privately. Captain, can I ask you something off the record? Of course. Are you confident we can win this? Really win, not just delay the inevitable. Webb was quiet for a moment, considering his answer carefully. Admiral, I've spent 2 centuries studying the Korthak Dominion. I've analyzed their tactics, their technology, their weaknesses. I've seen what happens to worlds that can't defend themselves. And I can tell you this. If we do everything right, if we use every advantage we can gain, if we fight smarter than any human force has ever fought before, we have a chance. Just a chance? Sometimes a chance is all you get, Webb replied. The question is whether you're willing to take it. Chun extended her hand. Then, let's build ourselves a miracle, Captain. 12 hours later, the first Forerunner construction platforms materialized at the L4 Lagrange point. They were massive, geometric structures that seemed to fold space around themselves as they worked. Raw materials flowed into them from mining ships that had been hastily redirected from their commercial operations, and slowly, impossibly, something new began to take shape. The U.S. Excalibur, humanity's first Forerunner-enhanced warship, was about to be born, and, with it, Earth's best hope for survival against an enemy that had never known defeat. In the depths of space, automated sensors detected the unusual energy signatures emanating from Earth's solar system. The data was compiled, analyzed, and transmitted across vast distances to waiting Korthak command ships. The response was immediate and decisive. Battle groups that had been assigned to other conquest operations were redirected. Reinforcement fleets were mobilized. Within days, the largest armada in Korthak history would begin its final approach to Earth. The clock was ticking, and humanity's transformation had barely begun. The transformation of human civilization happened faster than anyone thought possible. In the 2 weeks since the U.S. Excalibur had completed its maiden voyage and destroyed an entire asteroid in its weapon tests, Earth's combined governments had thrown every available resource into the massive construction effort. Captain Webb stood in the command center of Bastion Station, the massive orbital fortress that now dominated the L4 Lagrange point. Through the reinforced windows, he could see the most incredible sight in human history, a fleet of 67 warships unlike anything Earth had ever produced. The ships bore familiar names: Defiance, Victory, Indomitable, Phoenix, but their hulls gleamed with the same white Forerunner alloys as the Prometheus. Each vessel bristled with weapons that could unmake matter at the quantum level, powered by reactors that tapped directly into the fabric of space-time itself. Construction status report. Webb called to Commander Sarah Kim, the Korean naval officer who had become his chief of staff. 67 vessels operational and fully crewed, Kim replied efficiently. 15 heavy cruisers, 32 frigates, 20 destroyers. All ships have passed combat trials and are ready for deployment. Personnel training? Ahead of schedule. Your crash course in Forerunner technology has produced some remarkable results. Lieutenant Torres from a Defiance has already qualified as a quantum weapon specialist. Webb nodded approvingly. The integration of Earth's military personnel with Forerunner technology had gone smoother than expected. Humans, it turned out, had an intuitive grasp for the quantum mechanics underlying the advanced systems that even Webb found remarkable. Admiral Chen's ETA, he asked. 15 minutes. She's bringing the final squadron from Luna shipyards. Through the window, Webb could see the approaching ships. The Luna squadron consisted of 8 heavy cruisers built using the automated facilities that had been hastily constructed around Earth's moon. They were the largest vessels in the new fleet, each one capable of taking on a Korthak battle group single-handed. "Sir," called Lieutenant Rodriguez from the communication station. "Long-range sensors are detecting gravitational anomalies at the edge of the solar system." Webb felt his stomach drop. Time frame. Difficult to determine with the interference, but based on the pattern, I'd estimate 72 hours until arrival. The Korthak main fleet was ahead of schedule. Webb had hoped for another week to complete defensive preparations, but hope was a luxury they could no longer afford. "All ships, this is Captain Webb," he broadcast on the fleet communication channel. "Alert status Alpha. All vessels prepare for immediate deployment." This is not a drill. Throughout the solar system, humanity's new fleet began to move. Ships that had been conducting final systems checks immediately broke off and began forming battle groups. The careful deployment patterns Webb had planned over the past weeks swung into action with military precision. Admiral Chen's shuttle docked with Bastion Station just as the first tactical reports began coming in from the outer system sensors. She strode into the command center, still wearing her EVA suit, having come directly from inspecting the Luna squadron. "How bad is it?" she asked without preamble. Webb gestured to the main display, where a three-dimensional representation of the solar system showed red contacts appearing at the edge of sensor range. "Worse than I hoped, better than I feared. Initial count suggests approximately 800 Korthak vessels." 800, Chen repeated flatly. "Against our 67. Numbers aren't everything," Webb reminded her. "A single Forerunner-enhanced ship can take on 20 Korthak vessels under ideal conditions. But we won't have ideal conditions." He manipulated the display to show tactical projections. "They're approaching in multiple waves. First wave consists of heavy assault ships designed to break orbital defenses. Second wave will be troop transports and planetary bombardment vessels. Third wave is their command fleet. Standard Korthak invasion protocol," Chen observed. "What's our response?" "We're going to do something they've never encountered before," Webb said with grim satisfaction. "We're going to attack them before they reach Earth." The command center fell silent. Everyone present understood the implications. Traditional defensive strategy called for falling back to prepared positions, using planetary defenses to even the odds. What Webb was proposing was the exact opposite, taking the fight to the enemy while they were still deploying. "That's incredibly risky," Commander Kim pointed out. "If we lose the fleet in deep space, Earth will be completely defenseless. If we let them reach Earth orbit, we lose anyway," Webb replied. "The Korthak will bombard the planet from a safe distance while their ground forces secure strategic positions. We need to hit them while they're still in formation, before they can adapt to our new technology." Admiral Chun studied the tactical display, her mind racing through possibilities and contingencies. "What's the plan?" Webb highlighted several areas on the projection. 3-phase assault. Phase 1, hit and run attacks using our fastest ships. Frigates and destroyers will strike their outer formations, drawing attention and forcing them to respond. Phase 2, heavy cruisers engage their main battle line, while the smaller ships continue harassment tactics. Phase 3, the Prometheus, and I lead the final assault on their command vessels. You're dividing our forces, Chen noted. Military doctrine says to maintain concentration of firepower. Military doctrine assumes similar technology levels, Webb countered. Our ships are individually superior, but they're also more complex. If we lose one to lucky shot or overwhelming numbers, it's a much bigger loss than they can afford. Better to use superior speed and firepower to fight on our terms. Chen nodded slowly. It was unorthodox, but then everything about this situation was unorthodox. Deployment timeline? Phase 1 ships launch in 6 hours. That gives us time to reach the outer system before the Korthak arrive. Phase 2 forces deploy 12 hours later. Phase 3. Webb paused. Phase 3 depends on how well the first 2 phases go. Over the next 6 hours, Bastion Station became a hive of activity. Ship crews performed final equipment checks, while tactical officers refined attack plans. In the station's manufacturing bays, automated systems worked frantically to produce additional ammunition and spare parts for the fleet. Webb found himself in the quiet observation deck, looking out at the fleet that represented humanity's greatest achievement and possibly its last hope. Admiral Chen joined him, bringing 2 cups of coffee. Second thoughts? She asked, offering him a cup. Always, Webb admitted, but not about the mission, about whether I should have come back sooner. You came when Earth needed you most. Did I? What if I'd returned 50 years ago, given humanity more time to prepare? What if I'd never left at all? Chun sipped her coffee thoughtfully. What if the Forerunners had never existed? What if the Korthak had never evolved? You can drive yourself crazy with what-ifs, Captain. The only thing that matters is what we do now. She was right, of course. Webb had spent decades wondering about different choices, different paths. But the past was immutable. Only the future could be changed. Admiral, he said finally, when this is over, assuming we win, what happens to the Prometheus and her crew? Chen looked surprised by the question. I assumed you'd return to Earth. You've been away long enough. 50 people who left Earth 200 years ago, returning to a world that's moved on without them, Webb mused. We're ghosts, Admiral. Relics from a time that no longer exists. I'm not sure we'd fit into whatever comes next. Before Chun could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Commander Kim's voice echoed over the intercom. All hands alert status red. Long-range sensors confirm Korthak fleet arrival in outer system. ETA revised to 60 hours. Webb drained his coffee and set down the cup. Time to go to work. The first phase of humanity's counterattack launched exactly on schedule. 24 ships, frigates, and destroyers that represented the fastest vessels in the new fleet departed Bastion Station and accelerated toward the outer system at speeds that would have been impossible with conventional technology. Leading the formation was the UES Excalibur, the prototype frigate that had started it all. Captain Lisa Park, formerly of the destroyed cruiser Yorktown, had volunteered to command the ship despite having only 2 weeks of experience with Forerunner technology. All ships maintained formation, Park broadcast to her small fleet. Remember, we're not trying to win the war today. We're trying to buy time and gather intelligence. The response came from 23 other captains, all of them volunteers who understood they might not be coming home. But they also understood that Earth's survival depended on their success. As the fleet raced toward humanity's date with destiny, automated manufacturing systems throughout the solar system continue their work. More ships, more weapons, more defenses. Everything that human ingenuity and Forerunner technology could produce in the remaining time. But in the end, Webb knew it would come down to courage. Human courage, facing an enemy that had never known defeat. The same courage that had driven exploration of the oceans, the conquest of the skies, and the first tentative steps to the stars. The same courage that had sent the Prometheus into the unknown 2 centuries ago, carrying 50 people who were willing to sacrifice everything for the chance to save their world. In 48 hours, they would learn whether that courage was enough. Deep in space, the Korthak fleet detected the approaching human ships and began to adjust their formation. For the first time in their long history of conquest, prey was coming to them. The aliens found this development interesting. The battle for humanity's survival began at 1437 Solar Standard Time, approximately 100 million kilometers from Pluto's orbit. Captain Lisa Park, commanding the UES Excalibur, watched her tactical display as 800 Korthak vessels arranged themselves in their traditional conquest formation. All ships, this is Excalibur, she broadcast to her small fleet. Target the outer ring destroyers first. Hit and run tactics. Don't let them box us in. The 24 human ships accelerated to attack speed, their forerunner drives allowing maneuvers that defied conventional physics. The Excalibur led the charge, her quantum weapons charging with the distinctive white glow that had become humanity's signature. The first shots of the war came from the Korthak fleet. Plasma cannons and particle beams reached out across millions of kilometers, creating a deadly web of energy that would have vaporized any conventional human vessel. But these weren't conventional ships anymore. The Excalibur danced through the incoming fire like a ghost, her pilot using gravitational manipulation to bend space around the ship. Behind her, the rest of the human fleet followed suit, their movements coordinated by quantum communication links that operated faster than light itself. Target acquired, reported Lieutenant Commander Torres from the Excalibur's weapons station. Firing quantum disruptors. Beams of pure, white energy lanced out from the human fleet. Where they struck Korthak vessels, the alien ships simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not vaporized, they were unmade at the molecular level, their atoms scattered across space like cosmic dust. In the first minute of combat, humanity destroyed 30 Korthak ships without suffering a single loss. But the aliens adapted quickly. Korthak commanders who had conquered 1,000 worlds recognized that they faced something unprecedented and began deploying tactics they had never needed before. Heavy battleships moved to shield their damaged formations, while fast attack craft attempted to surround the human vessels. Their learning, Park observed grimly as enemy fire began to converge on her position. All ships, evasive pattern Delta. Don't let them predict our movements. The hit and run phase of the battle continued for 3 hours. The human ships struck like lightning, appearing from impossible angles to destroy enemy vessels before vanishing back into the void. But slowly, inevitably, the Korthak began to score hits. The first human loss was the destroyer UES Valiant. Caught between 3 enemy battleships, her captain made the ultimate sacrifice by ramming the largest Korthak vessel at near light speed. The resulting explosion destroyed both ships and damaged 2 others. Valiant is gone, reported the communications officer aboard Excalibur. 23 ships remaining. Park felt the weight of command settle on her shoulders. Every ship lost was irreplaceable. Every crew killed was a piece of humanity's future. But they had bought precious time for the main fleet to deploy. Phase 1 complete, she announced. All ships fall back to Rendezvous Point Bravo. Time for Phase 2. 60 million kilometers closer to Earth, Admiral Chun waited with a heavy cruiser squadron. The UES Defiance had been completely rebuilt using Forerunner technology, transformed from a battered survivor of the first battle into one of the most powerful warships in human history. Phase 2 ships, this is Admiral Chun. Prepare for engagement. Our job is to break their main battle line and create an opening for Captain Webb's final assault. The 15 heavy cruisers of Chen's force represented the backbone of humanity's new fleet. Each ship was larger than the frigates and destroyers of Phase 1, equipped with more powerful weapons and stronger defenses. But they would also face the concentrated might of the Korthak main force. Enemy fleet bearing Enduro Mark IV, reported Commander Rodriguez from his tactical station. They're maintaining formation, but increasing speed. Estimated contact in 40 minutes. Chen studied her displays, watching as the massive alien armada approached like a storm front. 800 ships, representing the accumulated might of an empire that spanned half the galaxy. She had 15 vessels and the desperate hope that human innovation could overcome impossible odds. All ships deploy in extended formation. We're going to hit them from multiple vectors simultaneously. Don't give them a single target to concentrate on. The heavy cruisers spread out across millions of kilometers of space, each ship taking position for the coordinated assault to come. This was the moment that would determine whether humanity's new technology could stand against the Korthak's numerical superiority. At precisely 1915, the second phase of the battle began. The UES Defiance opened fire first, her quantum weapons reaching across space to strike at the heart of the enemy formation. The Korthak flagship, a massive dreadnought that dwarfed even Earth's largest vessels, shuddered as molecular-level destruction ravaged its hull. But the Korthak fleet responded with overwhelming firepower. Hundreds of energy weapons converged on the human ships, creating a display of destruction that could be seen from the inner planets. The space between the fleets became a hell's cape of plasma fire and exploding matter. Direct hit on Indomitable, reported Rodriguez. She's lost main power, but still fighting. Chen watched her tactical display as the battle unfolded in 3 dimensions. Her ships were inflicting terrible damage on the enemy, but they were taking casualties in return. The mathematics of attrition favored the aliens, unless something changed quickly. That something was Captain Marcus Webb and the Prometheus. The massive Forerunner vessel materialized in the heart of the Korthak fleet without warning, her advanced stealth systems having masked her approach perfectly. Suddenly, the aliens found themselves facing an enemy that could strike from any direction without detection. "This is Captain Webb," came his voice over the communication channel. "Phase 3 is active. All ships, concentrate fire on enemy command vessels. We're ending this now." What followed was a display of advanced warfare that redefined the possible. The Prometheus moved through the Korthak fleet like an avenging angel, her weapons cutting through enemy vessels with surgical precision. Where conventional ships might have been overwhelmed by superior numbers, the Forerunner technology allowed Webb to fight an entire fleet single-handedly. But the Korthak had one last surprise. From the center of their formation rose a ship unlike any they had fielded before. It was massive beyond description, its hull covered in strange organic growths that pulsed with malevolent energy. This was a Harvester-class vessel, the ultimate weapon of Korthak conquest. "Webb, you need to see this," Chen broadcast urgently. "That's not in any of our intelligence reports." "I know what it is," Webb replied grimly. "It's a planet killer. The Korthak only deploy them when facing total defeat. They'd rather destroy Earth than lose it to us." The Harvester began to charge weapons that would indeed crack a planet's surface. Energy readings off the scale as the alien vessel prepared to carry out one final act of spite. "All ships, converge on the Harvester," Webb ordered. "Everything we have right now." Every surviving human vessel turned toward the massive alien ship, their weapons firing in desperate unison. Quantum disruptors and molecular destructors struck the Harvester's hull, but the vessel's advanced defenses absorbed the assault without visible damage. "It's not working," Chen reported. "Our weapons aren't penetrating." Webb made a decision that would have seemed impossible an hour before. "All ships, fall back to minimum safe distance. I'm going to ram it." The Prometheus accelerated toward the Harvester at full power, her massive bulk building momentum for an impact that would destroy both vessels. But as the 2 ships approached collision, something unexpected happened. The Harvester's weapons turned on its own fleet. "What the hell?" Chen watched in amazement as the massive alien vessel began destroying Korthak ships with its own planet-killing weapons. "The Prometheus is equipped with quantum infiltration systems," Webb explained as his ship pulled away from the suicidal collision course. "I've taken control of their command vessel. The Harvester is now working for us." What followed could only be described as a rout. The Harvester, under Webb's control, methodically destroyed the remaining Korthak fleet while human ships provided support and eliminated any vessels that tried to escape. Within an hour, 800 enemy vessels had been reduced to expanding clouds of debris. The war was over. On the bridge of the Defiance, Admiral Chen slumped in her command chair as the reality of victory finally sank in. Around her, her crew was celebrating, but she found herself thinking about the cost. 16 human ships destroyed, over 2,000 crew members dead. The price of freedom had been paid in blood, but it had been paid. "Admiral," came Webb's voice over the communication system. "Congratulations. Humanity has just won its first interstellar war." "What happens now?" Chen asked. "The Korthak Dominion is huge. They'll send more fleets." "No, they won't," Webb replied with satisfaction. "The Harvester contains their complete military database. Fleet positions, strategic plans, even the location of their homeworld. We're not just going to defend Earth anymore, Admiral. We're going to take the fight to them." "You're talking about offensive operations?" attacking the Korthak. The Forerunners never had the chance to strike back, Webb explained. They were caught off guard, overwhelmed before they could organize a response. But we have their technology, and now we have intelligence on enemy positions. The Korthak Dominion is about to discover what happens when you attack a species that can fight back. As Chun absorbed the implications, she realized that humanity had just taken a step into a larger universe. They were no longer a single-world species struggling to survive. They were an interstellar power with technology that could challenge any empire. 6 months later, the first human expedition to former Korthak territory would discover something remarkable. On world after world, species that had been enslaved for millennia were rising up against their oppressors. Word of humanity's victory had spread throughout the galaxy, carried by refugee ships and quantum communications arrays. For the first time in millions of years, the Korthak were in retreat. Captain Marcus Webb stood in the observation deck of Bastion Station, now expanded into a massive orbital shipyard and military command center. Before him, construction platforms built new vessels every day, not just Earth ships, but vessels for the dozens of alien species that had requested human assistance in their fight for freedom. Admiral Chin joined him, as she had so many times before. But now she wore the uniform of the first commander of the Terran Interstellar Defense Force, humanity's answer to galactic threats. "Any word from the Centauri expedition?" she asked. "They've made contact with 3 more Forerunner ruins," Webb reported. "The technology we're recovering there will keep our technological edge for decades to come." "And the Prometheus crew?" Webb smiled. "Adapting better than I expected. Lieutenant Torres has been promoted to captain of the new UES Pioneer. Commander Kim is overseeing the training academy for alien crews. Even I found a new purpose." "Oh, and what's that?" Webb gestured to the bustling activity around them. "Teaching. Turns out there are a lot of species out there who want to learn how to fight back against oppression. Someone needs to show them how." Shin nodded approvingly. The man who had left Earth 2 centuries ago as an explorer had returned as a teacher and liberator. It seemed fitting somehow. In the distance, a new ship was taking shape in the construction bays. The UES Forerunner, humanity's first purpose-built exploration vessel, designed to seek out new civilizations and offer them the same choice the Forerunners had given humanity so long ago: the tools to defend themselves and the freedom to choose their own destiny. The age of human expansion had begun, and throughout the galaxy, oppressed species looked to the stars with hope, knowing that somewhere out there, Earth's children were coming to help them reclaim their freedom. The unknown ship had decloaked and joined the war for Earth. But in doing so, it had sparked something much larger, a galactic war for freedom that would reshape the entire galaxy. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as conquerors or exploiters, but as liberators and teachers. It was a destiny that would have made the Forerunners proud.